Hi everyone, I'm Stephanie Crawford. Welcome to episode 7 of Mrs. Cford Vlogs, where we're going to talk today about some creative practice and creative assessments that think outside the normal paper and pen, essay questions, research projects, all of that. So let's jump right in and look at one of my favorite things to do, which is building with Lego bricks. It might seem a little silly to you, and you don't have to go out and buy supplies for this. You can ask for donations. I went to Facebook on social media and just asked family and friends, if you have any extra Legos that you're not using anymore that you were going to get rid of, would you mind donating them? Would you think about donating them? And I was able to get all of my Legos for my classroom donated. That way I did not have to buy any of them. It was really nice. I do use Legos frequently. Most recently I used them with my Power Lit class who read the book Utopia, which was written in the 1500s. I know it sounds very thrilling. But they were assigned sections instead of reading the whole thing, and they were tasked with teaching the rest of the class about their section. And the way that they had to do that was pick out 3 big ideas from their section to represent with Legos, and then record a presentation about those Lego builds in a Flipgrid. So they were also limited to time because of that format. So through their presentation, I was able to look at speaking and listening. I was able to look at whether they could pull out evidence to support their opinions. I was able to look at whether they could analyze the text. So this can be used over multiple contents, but it was also fun. They get into the idea of finding the Legos that they need. It becomes a challenge. You can put a time element on it if you want. Okay, I'm going to show you one of the builds that a group did. So they did all of their builds together and broke the area into 4 parts to show their 4 builds. So here, for instance, the section that they were talking about talked about how there was religious freedom, that you weren't forced to believe in anything. So they found handcuffs. This is a fire, and they are showing that you are not chained to any religion, to any faith. This one over here with this green area, this is a scale. Where they have gold because the Utopians had a lot of wealth, and then this side, and it seems to have fallen off, but they had a rock over here that showed that the quality or the way that they valued things from the earth, like soil, all of that, was just as equal to how they valued gold, that gold wasn't more important. Now, when you just look at it, you might not get that information, but as they filmed it and were talking about it, those elements start to take shape, and you're able to get some clear information about what they understand and what they're struggling with. This could easily be done as an assessment also if you were asking students to work individually, if you wanted them to pull out quotes to go with the sections that they were building. What I was able to do was ask the students as we watched the Flipgrid, okay, after it's done, which build do you think was the most effective and why? Which one got their message point the clearest? So we were able to have good discussions about that based on their Lego build. So Legos are a fun thing. Oh, you can also use symbolism a lot in there. So this was a creature that came off of one of the builds, and this creature, they needed to represent death. Well, they found these octopus legs and this body. They found something that looked menacing. They put it all together, and this was their symbol for it. It works. There was no question in any of our minds that this was not a pleasant thing that was coming after them. So it also can help you with something as simple as that symbolism. Another thing is using, instead of full-blown research projects, which are important to have them understand how to research. Sometimes we don't need to have a full paper assigned. Sometimes we don't need to have multiple paragraphs assigned. Sometimes the importance is them choosing what they want to research, showing you that they know how to go out and get it, and then being able to actually represent that information in a way that makes sense to their peers. So I've got a couple examples of that. This was my latest. I created that organizer. It was for work that we just did on the Harlem Renaissance. Students had written, I asked for a written 1-paragraph document turned in to me, shared with me, that showed the person that they were focusing on from the Harlem Renaissance, the impact that that person had. Basically, we went through that who, what, when, where, why, how, and the impact. After they shared that with me, that's when I introduced this organizer, and I asked for them to put information into its appropriate space and find information if they didn't have it originally. And by doing this, we were able to focus on a lot of people from the Harlem Renaissance and see their impact in a relatively short amount of time. I didn't have to allow weeks for a research project. We actually were able to get it all done within a couple days, including filling that organizer in. So when students came to class with that organizer done, we were able to have an entire class discussion about different people from the Harlem Renaissance. Each class probably got to about 10 different people that were represented. So this is a student example. Now she chose to put a face, more of a face on here, and very organized, put in some color. But if I had asked her to go, she would have told me that she had done Billie Holiday. She would have told me something she learned about Billie Holiday, and then she would have given the quote that she picked out. The rest of the students would have done the same thing. So for instance, here's one about Madam C.J. Walker. Now you can see he organized his in a different manner, but this worked for him. This person did Louis Armstrong, but used a lot of colors. That was fine. I had no problem with that. I didn't give that instruction that they had to use colors, that they had to draw a face, that they had to use a certain separation like this student did with that T. They were allowed to do that on their own. But because they all had these organizers in front of them, as they would talk about their person, if someone else had done the same person, we were able to have a conversation. Okay, you add to it. What did you learn about this person that hasn't been stated yet? And what quote did you find? And by doing it that way, in 43 minutes, we were able to cover 10 different people, talk about the similarities we saw from person to person within the Harlem Renaissance. What traits did they all possess? What were they working towards? We were able to look at multiple quotes from one person and see what that told us about the person, looking at those characteristics. It was a really impactful day, and it didn't take posters and projects and days of presenting. But I was still able to reach everyone and to find something out about multiple people that those students can keep with them. Now also these can be hung up. As we go through the Harlem Renaissance, I can display those and they can be a point for students to come back to as they want to. Another way to use research in a different fashion was to, after we read a Cape Town water crisis article and we annotated it, I had them choose 3 of the questions that they made while they were annotating to research. And we talked about specifically going to databases, not just going to Wikipedia. And then they were able to, again, just like they were able to pick the person they wanted to focus on for the Harlem Renaissance, they were able to pick the questions they wanted to focus on for this. So they were asked to create an infographic or a sketch note for their results of those 3 questions. Now I did tell them about going to Canva for free infographics where they can create them for free, but some students chose to do them by hand. So this is an example of that. So you can see she has put her 3 questions up here and then also represented her results. This is very clear, and from this I can tell easily what she researched and what her results were. This also led to an easy class discussion because we were able to, as a whole group, say, okay, what questions did we have? Bring those up, talk about our results. If people had similar questions, they were able to bring what they learned into it. And if they had differing results, now it opens a brand new discussion. Well, what sources did you go to? When was it published? Maybe yours was published before this one, and so the information wasn't as up to date. So it led to a great discussion about sources also, while still letting me see where each student was with their research skills, with being able to, again, back up what they're saying with that evidence. And finally, one of the things that I enjoy doing, again, that can go across different contents is the one-pager. And you might have heard about one-pagers before. In Lit specifically, I can use them to say, all right, we've read this story or we've read this book. You have one page to get all of these ideas down. It's got to have an image, some visual that connects with the story. It's got to maybe tell me the theme. Maybe I ask for a couple examples of figurative language. Maybe I ask for them to, just like when we annotate, to put questions that they had while reading the text. I can really make it however I want. And their only responsibility is to make sure that that one page has all of those things represented. So we read The Most Dangerous Game, and because we have a variety of students, there's a variety of one-pagers that are turned in. This was the first time this class had ever done a one-pager, and I was pretty impressed with their results and also inspired to continue going with it because it is outside of that normal write me an essay, and I was still able to see exactly what they knew, what they had taken in from the story. So here's an example from The Most Dangerous Game, and you can see the border and the font all help to relay what's happening. The caution sign here. So even without reading it, you get a feel for the story. This student organizes much differently. Everything is sectioned off. There is more writing, but overall there is an image around the border. There's images, theme is put in there. All of these images connect with the text. A student like this chose to focus on that caution border, which grabs your attention right away, and you know what those colors mean in that design, and then sectioned it off to answer each of the questions using symbols too. A student like this, okay, sectioned it off again very differently, and notice that each section then still had that color with it to draw your eye through. There were multiple images, but maybe larger images than that first one. So there weren't as many overall images, but it still worked to take you through it. No two of the one-pagers were alike. Everything was different, but they all had the same elements in there, and I was able to easily tell whether they were struggling with a concept or not. In that particular one, I was also able to put a presentation in there. I was able to use just a projector for them to put up their image on our smartboard, and they walked the class through. That helped on presentation skills, our speaking and listening again, and it also let the students ask questions from each other as well. If they picked out a different theme than another student, we were able to talk about that, and it helped reteach for that item. Again, those could be used as an assessment. Any one of these things could be used as an assessment, as long as you've worked on it and practiced that skill before. So any of these could be practice, they could be used to get a grade for it, but you're going to know how your students are doing. You're going to understand what they know coming out of it, and it's going to be a nice change from having to write that research paper or spend the weeks doing the research, and you can still get the same results with this. So it's nice to throw in and give them a break sometimes from that traditional assignment. I feel like we went a little long this time, but I hope that you enjoyed the things that we talked about, the items that I showed you, and that you found a way, or you can find a way to incorporate something like that in your classroom. I'd love to hear your ideas and how you're using out-of-the-box thinking for your practice and your assessments. And if you enjoyed what you saw, please like and subscribe, and I will see you next time on Mrs. Cford Vlogs. Thanks.